Now, growing up, I had really strict parents, and going to sleepovers was one thing I was never actually really allowed to do. You guys are probably wondering why, and if you guys have really cool parents that let you go sleep at anyone's house, well, y'all kind of lucky. But back then, going to sleepovers was something that really popular kids always ended up going and doing, and I was always jealous. I always thought to myself, Mom, Dad, why can't I go to a sleepover like everyone else is? Bubba, do you know who they are? Do you know what their family does for work? Do you know who they live with? No, but I mean, I'll figure it out and text you guys when I get to the sleepover was always my excuse. I always told them I would update them and everything, but my parents always thought it's better never to risk it. Until one day. I remember my grade 9 year. At this point, I'm like hitting high school. You know, I'm a cool kid, and you know, I started becoming more popular in the popularity chain. But still, to this day in grade 9, I still never actually ended up going on a sleepover until this one day. The one day where I ended up going to my science classroom. I sat down next to my buddy, and my friend looks at me saying, yo, Bubba, I was just wondering, bro, do you want to come over and stay the night at my place tonight? Yeah, sure. Wait, like sleepover? Bro, we're in high school. No one says sleepover anymore. Oh, nah, I knew that. I was just like, you know, wondering because, you know, I always go to sleepovers and stuff. Well, yeah, don't you like always do the duels tango with girls? Like, I would thought that, you know, you go to sleepovers all the time. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, piece of cake. But obviously, I didn't tell him the truth that I never actually ended up going on a sleepover at this time and age because, well, I didn't want to seem like a loser that I never went to a sleepover. Anyways, after he asked me, he ended up standing up and leaving the classroom. And that's when I started to worry, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to a sleepover tonight. I'm going to a sleepover tonight. How am I going to tell my parents that I'm going to a sleepover tonight? Is what clicked in my mind. Until I realized that I could totally just do the main thing that most teenagers do at this time and age, and that's lie. I remember I went to my parents' room after school that day, and I ended up seeing them both sitting on the bed after their nice nap. I don't know why my parents always took naps when I was in high school, especially when I came home from school. I have really no idea why, unless they weren't napping. Wait a second. What if they weren't napping? Okay, never mind. Going on with the story. Sorry, that sounded weird. But like I was saying, I remember I walked in there. I'm like, hey, Mom, Dad, today I got a really important thing happening at school today. What, Bubba? What's going on? Is what my mom said. And that's when I told my mom and dad, Mom, Dad, there's a school sleep-in tonight, and it's actually worth 30% of our grade for high school. You have to sleep in the school for high school? What? What is this new generation coming up with? I don't know, honey, but I don't think this is right. Are you sure, Baba? Yeah, Mom, Dad, I'm sure, and I gotta go to the school sleep-in tonight, so if it's cool you drop me off, that'll mean a lot to me. Okay, Baba, if you say so, just be safe, okay? Yeah, of course, I'll update you. Okay, we trust you in school. Which is crazy to think about, because, like, what kind of parent trusts you sleeping inside a school, but not trusting you sleeping at a friend's house? Like, I know it's really different, and parents, if you guys do watch me, maybe you guys can, you know, explain to me how this works. But overall, I was okay with this, and I'm like, okay, you know what, it works out. Let's see how it goes. So I remember I went to my room and I started packing all the things I needed for a sleepover. Since I never had one, I didn't really know what to pack. Like, I ended up packing like a pillow, a blanket, because I didn't know if, you know, he had any. I ended up also packing like my underwear, my socks, and basically like a change of clothes. I thought that was more than enough until my mom and dad ended up coming into my room with a whole backpack already prepared for my school sleep-in, or my school sleep-in, I should say. I remember I looked at them and I'm like, Mom, Dad, why'd you guys pack for me? Bubba, you need to make sure you have toothbrush, toothpaste, a knife, protection, and on top of that, a lot of important things. Wait, did you just say a knife and protection? Bubba, they're the same thing. We're not giving you protection. Like for, you know, the duels tango. No, I get that, but I'm not bringing a knife, Mom. You don't know what happens at school. You never know nowadays. Which, to be fair, like, ever since I moved to America, I understand that, like, you know, school's dangerous. You know, I'm not gonna say it. You know, I'm not gonna be the guy to say it, but there are the school pows that happen. You know, bumped up kicks, better run. If you know what I'm saying, then it makes sense. But overall, like, I didn't think it should go to that extreme, especially since at that time, I was in Canada. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember my parents ended up giving me this bag, and I just took it because I didn't want them questioning any more about my school sleep-in, and they ended up driving me to school. When I got there, the school lights were totally off and the parking lot was like silent, and I remember my parents look at me and they're like, are you sure the school sleep-in's today? Yeah, no, 100% it is. Well, Bubba, why is there no one here? There's not even a car in the parking lot. The teachers are gonna be like parking behind the school, so like, you know, it's supposed to make the school look empty to not make it targeted. That's very smart of your school, Bubba. Remind me to call your school and say good job. Yeah, no problem. just leave me right here. Okay, Bubba, be safe. My parents ended up dropping me off, and then they ended up driving away. And at that moment, I basically stood at my school at like 9 at night with no one around, and basically realizing that it was kind of dumb what I did. But at the same time, it wasn't fully dumb, because I ended up calling my buddy, and he ended up riding his BMX bike over to me, and me and him started walking back to his place. When we walked over to his place, he kept asking me questions like, dude, like, why'd you like not bring your bike? And also, why'd you also come to the school? Just tell your parents to drop you off at my place. Yeah, bro, that's not allowed, is what I told him. He's like, what do you mean? I mean, I don't know. They said this was the closest they could drop me off, so, you know, it just makes sense. I don't know. I tried to play it off as cool, so, you know, he wouldn't suspect any questions. In a way, I guess I was lying to a lot of people at this moment, which is not my brightest suit, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it made me, you know, stay cool and popular, so I wasn't complaining. And I remember once we got to his place, one thing I realized is that many people live very different ways. What do I mean by this? It's maybe because I'm Persian, or, you know, half Persian, I should say. But when I enter inside a home, I expect, you know, for me to take off my shoes. I expect for me to walk in and the place is all nice and clean. And I expect, you know, a nice friendly greeting. When I walked into my buddy's house that was white, I walk in there and he walks in with his shoes that were just, you know, walking through the mud back home from when we were walking from my school. And then on top of that, as we continue walking, I see his parents just look at me as if I'm some like homeless kid, and they just leave. It's like they don't even care I existed. And I was looking at my buddy and I'm like, yo, bro, is like your parents cool with me being here tonight? Oh yeah, don't worry, man. They're cool. They're just, you know, they're just being parents. What do you mean just being parents? If it was my parents and I invited someone over, my parents are bringing them snacks. My parents are making them their bed. My parents are making sure that the floors are clean. Like, my parents make me clean my room when I have guests over. Like, my parents make me clean my room when they bring friends over, even though they never end up entering my room. Like, it makes no sense. But at the same time, though, you know, at the end of the day, I get it. You know, many cultures do different things to, I guess, their homes over time. But I guess, I don't know. I never expected the white culture to be so bland. After that weird interaction, I remember I looked over at my friend, and me and him, we ended up going to his room. We started playing video games. We started playing video games until it got really late at night. I want to say it became like 11 at night, and things started to get a little weird. What do I mean weird? Well, he started asking me weird questions like about girls and stuff, and obviously I told him all my answers, like, oh yeah, this girl's cute. Yeah, her cherries are bigger than, you know, our teachers. You know, like, we started like talking about like basic girl stuff. I don't know, guys, do you guys have like basic girl talk when you like talk with like your friends and stuff? I don't know if it's normal. I guess for me it was, since I was like known as a player back, especially when I was in high school. But anyways, from there, one thing led to another, and my buddy ends up hearing a rock hit the window. I end up looking at him and I'm like, yo, like, what was that, Bubba? They're here. Wait, what do you mean? Who's here? And I end up looking out the window and I realized it was two girls. And at this moment, I got confused. At this moment, I realized that my buddy apparently invited two girls that were mid, by the way. They were like super mid-tier girls. Like, they were pretty ugly, but we're gonna make them beautiful in this video with the beautiful animation characters we have, but not the point. My buddy ends up bringing two mid girls to his house, and we sneak them through the window. How do we sneak them through the window? Well, luckily my buddy like lived on like this like balcony kind of thing. So he ended up basically like pulling each one of those girls up through the window. And when they got through the window, I remember they both were talking to him because they didn't know me yet. I was just some random brown guy inside a white household. But anyways, these two girls were like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh my goodness, how you guys doing? What you guys up to, you know? And I'm just like standing there next to my buddy, and I'm like, you know, awkwardly not saying anything because, well, I thought this was gonna be a guy's night, but apparently he just brought me over to wingman, and not only just wingman, but to also take the fridge that was with the snack, which, to be fair, I don't know which one was the snack, but we'll just pretend there was one. And my buddy's like, oh, this is my friend Bubba, you know, he goes to my school, he's in my science class, he's pretty cool. Hi, how you guys doing? Is what I said really awkwardly. And then one thing led to another. I guess this girl was like trying to make her friend come over to me so she can hang out with my buddy. And to be fair, my buddy was much as a player as I was. To be honest, I learned a lot of my playing skills from him, until one thing led to another. My buddy's like, oh my goodness, guys, we should watch a movie. Okay, cool, yeah, let's watch a movie. So we all sit on his bed, trying to be as quiet as possible because we didn't know if his parents were still up. And it got to the point where we started like laying down on the bed, not knowing what movie to watch, until this girl that was next to me that was pretty ugly ends up saying, oh, we should watch like, oh my God, we should watch like Lord of the Rings. You want to watch Lord of the Rings? You want to watch a 4-hour freaking movie? Which I was already freaking out at this point, but then the girl that was her friend ends up saying, let's watch all of the Lord of the Ring movies. That's such a good idea. At this point, I'm baffled, but my buddy, he, you know, he's a major, like, I guess player, but kind of pulled a simp card because he ends up saying, oh yeah, like we can so do that 100%. And he ends up putting the Lord of the Rings on. Me, I get super tired, especially when I watch movies. Like, I don't know about you you guys, but when I want to go to bed or I'm laying in bed about to sleep, I watch movies. I watch movies so I can, like, you know, pass out to like a hearing voice. It's kind of like white noise. Some people sleep to white noise. I sleep to movies. So as we're watching this, you know, Lord of the Rings film, I'm like slowly like passing out and my head's like slowly dropping. And then these girls are like, you know, slowly like getting more excited about this film, even though they're still just walking through the woods and there's a giant bearded white guy. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, comment down below. But yeah, it just got really annoying. But I think over time, as the movie continued, I slowly started to pass out. I was passing out nice and slow until it really hit me. What hit me? Well, this girl's peach, I should say, ends up hitting my eggplant. And then she thought it was a good idea for her hand to reach down there and grab my eggplant. I'm not joking. I thought this was crazy. I woke up to her squeezing my soft eggplant and I'm like, yo, like what's going on? I woke up in a scare and all I see is that her friend and my buddy were passed out and she just was like still wide awake and she had her phone out filming what she was doing. At that moment, I got up and I actually just left. I'm not joking. I walked 15 minutes outside in the dark at 4 a.m. and went home. When I got home, my parents were like wondering how I got home and were worried about me, but that's not even the worst part. Because what ends up happening is the next day when I got to school, my buddy comes up to me when we're in the middle of science class, all super upset. And he's like, dude, you do realize what you did, right? No. What did I do? Dude, when you left my place, the alarm went off and my parents found out I brought 2 girls over. Thanks for getting me grounded, dummy. Oh, sorry, dude. My bad. Yeah, let's just say after that day, he didn't really hang out with me until I became more popular in grade 10 than him. But overall, I don't know. Sleepovers are really weird, especially when you make it a girl and boy sleepover. Now, I think Uber is a super popular app that people use to either order food or just go on simple rides. And no, this video isn't sponsored by Uber. And if anything, Uber, please don't delete my Uber account after this because I still order food from you guys. But let's just say today's story is about the most insane Uber driver ever, and you guys will understand why. Basically, this whole story starts off back when I was in my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, I was a pretty cool dude. If anything, I was up the popularity food chain because of one thing that I had that most high schoolers didn't, and that was a car. I had a Toyota Celica GT, and that was 2001 model, so it looked kind of like a sports car, when in reality, it really wasn't. But I remember this thing was such a prized possession to me when my parents gave it to me when I was 16, because no joke, everyone in my school always wanted rides. Many people thought I was cool for just even having this vehicle. And every time I would show up to school with my car and just take my backpack out of the back seat, many girls were always looking at me that were just entering inside the school from just taking the bus before. It was such a major flex, and if anything, I could understand why rich people love cars, because especially if you had one back in high school, it kind of builds up to the point where you always wanted a supercar. Hell, even I want a crazy car. But let's just say back when I was in high school, I wasn't the best person to take care of a vehicle. If anything, I didn't really know how to change a tire. I always had my parents to do it, but to be fair, I was 16 and I didn't take auto shop class, so I didn't really know any better. It got to the point where I remember there was one day when I was driving and I was driving back home from school, and when I was parking my vehicle, I ended up realizing that there was a really weird scraping sound that was happening every time I was putting my car in park, anytime I was really braking in that matter. It got to the point where I called my dad out to see what was going on with my car, and he ended up looking under my hood and saw it was nothing with the engine, but that my brake pads were extremely, and I mean extremely damaged, to the point where it was basically almost redeemed unsafe to drive anymore. I ended up telling my dad how I needed my car to go to school and stuff, and I asked if I could borrow his car, but my dad had a car that was a Chevy Malibu that he would never let me drive. He said that I was too irresponsible, and especially for how I treated this car, he didn't want his car to be destroyed. And to be fair, now that I'm a lot older, I completely understand what he was talking about, and I don't blame him, especially since I didn't even know how to take care of a vehicle. Anyways, I remember me and my dad that day right after school, we ended up basically driving over to the auto shop that was near my house, and he ended up taking care of the brake pads that we needed done. But it was going to take apparently a month because he was so backed up in how many vehicles he had to take care of. So I remember the shop owner was like, so it's going to take a while for this to be done. I would say about a month. My dad ended up getting upset because he was like, but my son needs to drive to school. How will he get to school? Sir, can you not drive him yourself? He's a driver. You should be asking him. What if I wasn't here? What if I was dead? Okay, dad, calm down. I think he gets the point, is what I told him. Because my dad, when he knew I wanted something really done quick, he would try to do his best to make sure it was well done perfectly. Anyways, the auto shop owner ended up realizing that I needed to really basically find a way to go to school, and he knew that I was definitely not going to take the bus, because apparently when you start driving, taking the bus is like the hardest thing to do. Like, I haven't taken the bus since I was in high school. In my grade, what was it, 9 year was the last time I took the bus? So it was already like 3 years in that I didn't take the bus, and the system updated and I didn't really understand how to take the bus. And still to this day, I actually don't know how to take the bus. So the the auto shop owner, knowing this and knowing our situation, he ended up giving us a really good deal where he ended up handing me a card that said the word Uber on it. Now, I didn't know what this card was, but apparently it was for unlimited rides for an entire month. I don't know if this was a real thing, to be honest, but I remember when I downloaded the app that day for the first time in ever, I ended up realizing that this Uber card, literally, I could book rides and it was always free. It was the best thing ever, and I remember I got super excited to the point where I started taking rides randomly. But one thing I always felt uncomfortable about is that there was a bunch of different Uber drivers that would come pick me up. Some of them are really old, cranky, old white men that really just hate the world for some reason, and some of them are just random people that really are just awkward in the car. So as much as I love getting free rides, it really became super awkward, especially when it came to going anywhere in this world. It got to the point where I decided to only take the Ubers to just take me to school and back. And this is where things got kind of weird, because I remember one day I ordered my Uber to basically take me to school, except I'm not gonna lie, I really did not know how to feel about pulling up to school in an Uber, but I just ended up telling my friends and stuff that it was just my sister slash cousin that was driving me to school. I don't know, I basically made an excuse every time when I got to school about who was driving me instead of saying it was an Uber driver. I don't know why I thought it was embarrassing, because I think it's pretty cool that you're going to take Ubers every day to school, but it is pretty expensive, and on top of that, I don't really know how people would feel about that. Comment down below what you think. Going on, I remember it got to the point where it was a Wednesday, and on Wednesday, I remember I was, getting ready for school and stuff, and when I ordered my Uber, a nice lady with a white Tesla that was a really nice car ended up coming to pick me up. She picked me up, and I sat in her back seat, and I remember she was just this attractive 20-year-old lady doing Uber for just extra money while she was going to university. I thought this was really cool, and me and her actually ended up talking, which was funny enough because most Uber drivers are awkward, but she was actually willing to speak to me, and she was actually kind of cool. Me and her were talking about a lot of different things as she was driving me to school, and then she ended up asking me the question, oh, so like, I'm in school. Are you in school as well? No, I'm just working, it's my off year. Okay, that's cool, I guess. I mean, you're really cute. Oh, thanks. I mean, you are really cute as well. And at that moment, me and her started flirting with each other in the Uber. Now, I don't know if it's a rule to not flirt with your people that you drive around, but me and her were hitting it off, so I didn't really complain. So as me and her kept flirting back and forth, it got to a point where I did not want this girl to know I was 16, because I'm 16, she's 20, she's a lot older than me, she's legal, I'm not legal. Yeah, you can kind of see the mess where it's coming from. So it got to the point where I remember as she was driving me to school, she ended up realizing that she was about to drop me off at a high school, and she said to me, oh, did you put the right address down? No, actually, it's the pizza place across the street. I work there. Oh, that makes more sense. If for some reason it's showing me to take you to a high school. Oh yeah, no, that's really weird. I don't know what's going on. That's my bad. Oh, it's no problem at all. Here, I'll just take you to the pizza place instead. She ended up taking me to the pizza place across the street that was luckily owned by one of my friends. And I remember when I got dropped off there, my buddy that ended up actually going to school with me, that his parents owned the pizza place, ended up coming out, and he looked at me and saying, yo, Bubba, why are you here? Don't you know we start school in like literally like 10 minutes? Oh yeah, I mean, I just wanted to hang out with you, man, obviously. And I ended up talking to him outside the pizza place as if I worked there. And since he worked there, it kind of made sense. And I waited till she ended up leaving. And then that's when I ended up basically walking with my buddy to school. Honestly, I never thought I would see her again. We hit it off, but obviously, like, I don't know why I lied to her. I didn't think I was gonna see her again anymore until the next day. And on Thursday, I remember once again, I got ready for school. I put my backpack on and I put the address back to my school. And when I ordered the Uber, I realized that when I was looking on the app, I saw it was her once again. At this moment, I got really excited, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, wait. I put the school address down. Okay, hopefully I can make the same excuse. And when she came pick me up, she's like, oh, hey, stranger. I knew it was you. I recognized the name when I was accepting the drive. Oh, hey, yeah. How's it going, cutie? Oh, I'm good. Here, hop in. I ended up hopping inside her car, and she ended up driving me to school. And once again, we were flirting back and forth, to the point where I basically ended up making a move. What move did I make? Well, not that kind of move, obviously, because, she was driving. I ended up making the move of basically asking for her number. I know it sounds really bold, but it's actually not that hard to ask for a girl's number. I've done many crazy ways of asking for a number, and if you guys want to know how I ask for girls' numbers or just even approach a girl, follow me on Twitch. I usually stream on there basically like once a week or as much as I really can, but if you guys get notifications on, you guys will see me live stream and you guys can talk to me in person. I guess through the computer, but same thing. Going on though, I remember after I got this girl's number, she was basically all, cheery and happy. And me, I was also pretty excited and happy because I just got a hot girl's number. And then I remember she ended up dropping me off at the pizza place once again, and that's when my buddy comes out and he's like, dude, why do you keep getting rides to my work? And who are these people driving you? Oh, that was my girlfriend, your girlfriend drove you to school? Yeah. And she owns a Tesla? What happened to your car? Don't worry about it. You know, just me doing me is what I told him. And basically from there, I ended up walking to school with him, hoping that I was in the clear. Everything was totally fine until rumor got out that I had a girlfriend, which kind of sucked. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind this girl being my girlfriend. But it wasn't until the next day where once again, I got ready for school, and guess who picks me up? That's right, the same Uber driver. She comes, she picks me up, and I remember me and her, once again, we were flirting, except this time I sat in the front seat of the car. For some reason, she thought we were close because she literally texted me the night before. So basically from there, I sat in the front seat with her and we started heading to basically the pizza place. This time I actually put the map to the pizza place because I didn't want to risk it. And to be fair, it was literally just across the street. 2-minute walk wouldn't kill anybody. We end up going on this ride, and I remember as we're on the way to school, she's like, oh, how late can you be for work? Well, I mean, I start work in like 30 minutes. Okay, well, want to see something cool? Sure, what? She ends up putting the address of the pizza place I worked at, and she ends up putting it on her Tesla and turned on some sort of button to make it drive by itself. I saw that she wasn't even touching the wheel, wasn't touching the pedals, and the car was totally self-driving. Now, I know this is not new technology, but back when I was 16, I thought this was insane, dude, because not even my old car that was in 2001 could do that. I remember I was super amazed, and then that's when she told me we should go to the back seat. Is that safe? Bubba, these cars are meant to drive themselves. To be honest, my dad got me this because he knows it's super safe. Okay, sure. So me and her, we ended up one by one going into the back seat as this car was driving by itself, and me and this Uber driver girl ended up basically making out in the back seat to the point where she took off my pants, and yeah, I think you guys can guess where we went from there. We ended up doing the Devil's Tango in the back seat while the car was driving by itself. By the way, fair warning, don't do what I do in these stories, okay? It could lead to a lot of trouble, a lot of bad things, and you could basically almost end up in jail. But going on with the story, I remember we finally got to the pizza place, and I was basically not wearing anything in the back seat, and neither was she. For some reason, she thought it would be normal and totally fine for me and her to just get out of the car, put on her clothes, right in front of the pizza place, by the way. And that's when my buddy comes out saying, whoa, Bubba, getting on with your new girlfriend, eh? Oh, I'm not his girlfriend. Sorry, I gotta go. She ends up pulling up her pants finally and ends up going and driving away. And that's when my buddy looks at me saying, dude, I thought she was your girlfriend. Oh, she is. She was just joking. Anyways, let's go to school. We end up walking down to school and stuff. And at that moment, I realized that me and this girl was going to be trouble because my buddy was already suspicious. And I thought it'd be the best thing to probably cut her off and pretend she didn't exist. I don't know how I came to that conclusion, to be honest. I wish me and her still talked, but at the same time, I was 16. Yeah, never mind. It was definitely never going to work out. But one thing I did realize was that the next day when I blocked her, I ended up not taking an Uber to school because it was a Saturday and I don't have schools on Saturdays. No school should be on Saturday. If you have school on Saturday, your life sucks. And on the Monday when it came up, I told him the whole entire story. It was really weird too because like I still had to wait like another 2 weeks for my car, and every time she accepted I ended up basically giving her a bad review and refusing to get into a car with her. Now, when I was a kid, I always was afraid of graveyards until I realized that the one time I actually went to a graveyard, the only thing rising from the dead was my eggplant. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but super embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back, actually funny enough, in my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, as you guys may know, and I always say this in like every single video I've ever done on this channel, I was a major player, one of the biggest players in all of my high school. I know that sounds really weird, but at the same time, I went to 3 different high schools. So I guess you can say in my entire school district, my eggplant has been in more women than your mom has ever seen. Okay, wait, that sounds really bad. Let me rephrase that, but actually, never mind. Let's just get into the story. So I remember during my grade 11 year, me being a player and all, I remember I actually ended up going into my PE class. I took physical ed because obviously one of my main goals back when I was younger was to be jacked. Obviously, I was really skinny back then. If anything, I think I graduated high school weighing like 125 pounds, which is super insane, by the way. But also on top of that, like I never really ate as much because I was always scared of getting fat. But with this fear of being fat, I took physical education to kind of learn ways to like be more healthy. And when I entered inside my PE class, I ended up realizing that there was a new student that ended up joining in. Now, this new student wasn't any ordinary student. To be honest with you, this student actually kind of looked kind of weird. What do I mean by this? Well, I think we all know those like typical goth girls that like, you know, have black hair, wear usually all black, and on top of that, kind of just look entirely emo. I never really understood why people like this existed in the first place. I always blame the rock scene for this kind of reason, but at the same time, I don't really know. I guess you could say it's like a new nonchalant way and it defines some sort of aura for these goth people, even though in my opinion, it's all really weird in the first place. place. But not only just that, I remember when I saw her, I ended up like seeing her, and during PE, as we were all like playing games and, you know, being active and stuff, what this girl would do would sit in the end of the gymnasium in the very corner of it, and she would start basically drawing on herself. I don't know why, but she would always carry the Sharpie as if she wanted to be like a tattoo artist of some sort, and she would always draw on herself like the most weirdest thing. Like, I remember one day I ended up seeing on her leg like a giant, and I mean a massive picture of a skull. Really weird, kind of creepy, but at the same time, once again, people like this for some reason exist. I don't know why. My opinion, don't draw yourself a Sharpie. Hell, it's not even healthy to do that, I don't think. So just don't draw yourself in general. If you want to draw on something, draw on a piece of paper like normal artists would. Anyways, though, I remember when I saw her during my PE class sitting in the corner, our teacher was pairing us up to do tennis. And me, I never really liked tennis. I always thought it was a really weird sport. Comment down below what sport you guys play. But I remember I ended up basically getting paired up with her during tennis. And when I saw my teacher pairing me up with her, I was like, dude, you're joking, right? Oh, Bubba, just give her a chance. Come on, she's in the corner. Just make her be active a little bit. Come on, you got that power in you, don't you? I mean, sure, I guess. Perfect. Just try to relate to her and get her active. Come on. So I remember I ended up basically like, you know, going up to this girl in the corner, and I looked at her and I'm like, hey, I brought you your tennis racket. Oh. Thanks. What do you want? Oh, well, I mean, we got paired up, so do you want to maybe play tennis? Honestly, like, I'm kind of like meditating right now and like talking to the spirits, so like, no thanks. Oh, okay. Cool, I guess, is what I said to her, really awkwardly, because I didn't really know what to say after that. Like, she was talking to spirits and meditating in the corner of our school gym. Like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, what am I supposed to go down there and just start meditating with her in PE class? I don't know. I was really weirded out, and it got to the point where I ended up just walking up to my teacher, totally giving up. But then my teacher once again said, make her active or you're not passing this class. Come on, just do something. At that moment, I walked up to this girl once again, and I was like, yo, listen, you're gonna cost me my PE class. Can you please just stand up and just, like, you know, just hit the racket a couple times? Like, it's nothing that crazy. I sense a really angry aura around you. What? Are you good? Is what I said to her, totally like annoyed at her. And it got to the point where I got so mad that I ended up just actually leaving class. At that moment, I knew that I was gonna fail no matter what. So when I left the classroom, I remember I ended up just going to the cafeteria and sitting down, waiting for lunch to happen, because on that day specifically, it was mac and cheese day, and I love mac and cheese. It's one of my favorite foods to ever eat in the entire world. So as I'm sitting in the school cafeteria scrolling through TikTok on my phone, out of nowhere I ended up seeing someone sit in front of me, and it was the girl from my PE class. I look at her and I'm like, oh great, so now you want to eat with me as you make me fail class. What do you want? Baba, just give me your hand. She ends up grabbing my hand and she's like, I sense a bright future for you. Something you've always wanted. And at that time, I didn't really know why she was trying to read my hand, but also I didn't know what she meant by, you know, what I wanted for my future. At that time in grade 11, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I'm gonna be brutally honest, I did not expect for me to become a YouTuber and make videos about me doing women. Like, it's one of the most weirdest things, but at the same time, I guess it all, you know, adds up eventually, kinda. No? Okay. Anyways, like I was saying, from there, I remember things got really awkward as she was reading my hand, and I look at her and I'm like, okay, listen, I don't know what you're trying to do, but like, you already helped me fail my class. Like, what do you want? Honestly, Bubba, I think like you need to like really just learn to chillax. Oh, and you can show me how to chillax. Yeah, like I can show you how to relax a bit more and, you know, be a better person. Be a better person. You're the one drawing on yourself with Sharpie and you're telling me how to be a better person. Yeah, I don't know. After that conversation, it got really awkward to the point where I stood up because the bell rang for lunch once and for all, and I went straight to the cafeteria store to get my food. But I remember once I got my food, this emo girl started following me around the school very awkwardly and obviously. And by that, I mean like, no joke, it got to the point where one of my IRL friends ended up walking up to me being like, yo, Bubba, why is that girl following you? And I realized that it was still her, and I got so annoyed to the point where I basically walked up to her and I'm like, yo, listen, you need to like not follow me because it's getting weird. Bubba, I like sense this like aura between us. Wait, what do you mean aura? Like I sense this aura that like me and you are like meant to be connected in some way, but I don't know if it's real. Okay, well, honestly, like, what do I gotta do to just get you off my back is what I asked her. And that's when she told me after school to meet up with her at the front of the school. I didn't know why, but I was like, sure, whatever. And I remember as the school day went on, she would still follow me, but not as crazily. And even got to the point where she followed me on Instagram, which is super weird. And by the way, for people watching this video, do not stalk my Instagram followers. You're not gonna find the girls I tell in this story, bro. You're not finding anything. Anyways, I remember the end of the school day finally came and I ended up standing in front of my school waiting for her. It took her like 20 minutes to come over. over and finally get ready, but she ended up coming up with her tote bag, or like a bag that like was kind of like a purse. And she walks up to me and she's like, okay, Bubba, let's go. And me and her, we start basically going inside my car, and she ended up putting the GPS on my car to a certain place she wanted to go to. I didn't know where she searched up, and when I ended up looking on the map, it looked like we were just going to a basic field. So I thought, oh, maybe this girl just wants to, you know, meditate on a field. So as we drive down there, I start realizing we passed through a church, and here's a fun fact: most churches have a graveyard nearby. So we ended up going to this field, and I parked my car, and I ended up seeing like a lot of graves around, and I look at this girl and I'm like, what are we doing here? Bubba, just follow me. Me and her, we end up sitting between like a bunch of graves that are like close together, and she starts like basically putting her hands up, meditating. I don't really know why, but I sat next to her and I'm like, so what are we supposed to do here? I'm trying to see if there's an aura, but I can't feel anything. Here, let me take off my hoodie. I remember this girl ends up taking off her hoodie, and I instantly got bricked. You guys are probably wondering, whoa, that's a weird turn. What do you mean you got bricked? And I realized that this girl, even though she wore the most baggiest black clothing ever, she had a nice pair of racks, okay? She had a nice pair of cherries that I've ever seen. So I'm looking at this girl's cherries and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And one thing leads to another. Me and this girl, it gets kind of intense because I end up getting bricked, and I end up kind of like playing along with what this girl was saying, because I started getting a form of attraction for her. And like I said, in high school, grade 11, I was a major player, okay? So like, don't judge me on this one. I know you guys are typing down in the comments judging me, but just understand, I wasn't thinking anything better, okay? She starts basically sitting back down, and she's like, I'm starting to feel a presence coming in. I feel it all now. And one thing leads to another. I go along with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I also feel that presence. I think it wants us to do the devil's tango. She ends up looking at me super weird, but then she's like, do you seriously feel that aura? Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. It wants us to be more connected. And that's when she ends up smiling, and me and her, I'm not gonna lie, we literally did the devil's tango at the graveyard. Really insane. Never gonna do it again, and rest in peace to those people that we were doing it on top of. Does that sound normal? I don't really know, but anyways, yeah, we end up doing it, and one thing leads to another. We end up seeing one of the pastors come out of the church that was nearby, and he walks over the graveyard and sees me and this girl doing the devil's tango, and he starts freaking out, saying that he's gonna call security. And yeah, me and this girl, we end up getting up. We actually ends up running away from there, and I don't know, apparently the next day when I saw her at school, she had a weird dream about me becoming like some sort of like bad influence towards people, and she told me to stay away from her. Wasn't my choice, but hey, she was down. I don't really know. I don't really know what to say from there, but that girl was freaky. And you know what's funny? Still to this day, she still is kind of the same way. I don't know. Would you guys ever do it in the graveyard? Because if you would, then click on one of the videos on screen right now and follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.